وامنح الناس حبك بيض الله قلبك بيض الله قلبك كن سموحا لخصمك تلقى خصمك أحبك بيض الله قلبك بيض الله قلبك واحتفل بالمودة إنما
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Sulaimaan Ravat show. Now, last week on the program, we spoke about understanding the youth, and the key word I mentioned last week was the word understanding. And we said that, look, we have to understand what is the status of youth, what is the role of youth, what is the potential of the youth, also what are the vulnerabilities when it comes to the youth. And we spoke to Moulana Muhammad Vanka, and he gave us the Islamic perspective on it, the religious perspective. We then had Shakil Garda. He's the son of the famous Ashraf Garda from SAFM, and he came in and he was talking to us about their perspective as youth. How do they view things? What are their frustrations? How is it that they like or don't like to be dealt with? So that was a good, interesting discussion in terms of the overall aspects, understanding the youth. Today, for the program, I want to narrow it down a bit because, it's a bit of a continuation from last week, but it's got its own specific focus, and that is the disconnect between adults and the youth. So it plays out in different situations and scenarios. That disconnect can result in tensions in the parent-kid relationship, in the teacher-student relationship, even in the employer-employee relationship, when young adults get into the workspace, amongst other situations, because then there are the broader societal issues, the elder people in the family, the younger people in the family, the elder people in the congregation, the younger people in the congregation. So yeah, that is what we are going to be looking at this evening on the program. We have two guests. The second guest will join us a little later. But in studio, once again, we welcome Dr. Ken Resnick, who is a teacher by profession, but also an educational psychologist, and that's where his passion lies, and he's got many, many years of experience. He's written a number of books. Dr. Ken, thank you so much for your time once again. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
When you people look at it more from a formal academic perspective, how do you define these different words that we just use all the time? Kids, teens, tweens, teenagers. Are there important differences?
Well, it's all a developmental thing. They start off very young and then they grow. And so in actual fact, what we should be doing is guiding kids to adolescence, because that's when the problems really hit the fan. And the tweens are the ones that are in between. So we start picking up problems at an early age. Quite a lot of defiant kids that don't have self-discipline, not performing that well at school, mixed with too much with adults, have social problems. And as they get older, it tends to get a little bit worse. And if we haven't actually parented them properly in terms of helping them feel good about themselves, they've got to hit that world of peers, teenagers. They're in a world of peers all along. 5-year-olds with 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds with 6-year-olds. Adolescents, their body's developing, they have different interests. It's important for them to be accepted by their peers, and often they're clashing with parents who have their own set of values or may be very prescriptive or too indulgent. There are all sorts of reasons why children sort of turn out like they do and have the self-esteem that they do. And unfortunately today, kids just lack self-discipline. And it starts off with discipline in the home. And if we don't have discipline, and people equate it with smacking, which it's not, but that self-discipline is the key. And it starts off with very small things, where, for instance, kids can do a lot for themselves. And if mom is doing everything for him, instead of him doing it, and he gets upset if he can't do it, and he gets mom to do it. Mom, pick me up. Mom, bring me water, etc. Then we start having a problem where mom's doing too much. And then the child remains self-centered. And especially in this day and age where we're trying to overprotect them because we're scared of what's going on out there, and they're not mixing enough with their own peers. They mix too much with adults. They hang around too much with adults, often inappropriately. They might even mix in a conversation at 4 or 5, and it's not how it's supposed to be. They've got to learn to cope. They go into school, they go into that world of 5 and 6-year-olds where they've got to learn to cope with kids that might be bullies, kids that might be a bit inappropriate. And they've got to learn how to handle their world and learn to participate, learn to react to disappointment if they missed a goal or something like that. And that actually is all parenting. And parents aren't understanding their role because we're tending to focus on the child rather than help the parent understand what their role is, that can sort of avoid all of these problems with kids. But unfortunately, psychology has been brought in with kids, and that's a problem.
Would you say, in your opinion, that in the main there is a disconnect between adults and the youth?
I think there is quite a big disconnect in the sense that parents don't know what's happening in the child's world. For instance, kids have been given smartphones. Now, you might have a very strict thing with your kid doesn't have a smartphone. He's going to school with a 6 or 7-year-old that's got a smartphone that can connect to the internet. They're watching things that they shouldn't be watching, and parents are totally oblivious of it. What's also happening, what I've found just talking to teachers, is that parents are very sensitive. So when a teacher calls a parent in about a child's behavior, they're tending to defend the child instead of understanding, but wait a minute, what is this? Why is he like he is? So we're having a huge problem at school. I'm going to school tomorrow evening, and the principal said to me, we're having a huge problem with parents not understanding how important it is at home to instill the values and the discipline. They can't expect the school to do that. It's got to start in the home. School, even if you're paying 10, 20 grand to a school, it's not their job, if the parent's not doing their job, to discipline the child, to ensure the child gets good marks or is socialized and that sort of thing. So, and they go through these phases. 3 becomes a 4, becomes a 5, and their world gets bigger. Kids are in communication with their world. And if we keep them here, we're preventing them from getting out there, and we've got to equip them appropriately.
All right, Doc, so we spoke about the disconnect between the youth and adults. Is this something that's specific only to this generation because of technology and other new issues, or was this something that existed in every generation, a disconnect between the adults and the youth? And what are the reasons for this disconnect?
Look, I think there's often been, if you look at the history of teenagers, certainly at that age, teenagers are always at a conflict because values change. Rock and roll hit the scene, then movies, then music, everything sort of changed. But at the end of the day, communication changed. And whereas before we wrote letters, children were seen and not heard, we had a value system which slowly has broken down as things have evolved, where the child is now becoming so important because they started developing these sort of concentration problems, people got involved, something wrong with the child, and the parents became anxious. Discipline went. This has been the biggest problem because it slowly evolved into a situation now of no discipline. You don't get 3-year-olds saying please and thank you. So it has definitely been a different process. And the pressures weren't that great, I think, on adults in the old days. They went to work, they came back. Now it's a pressurized environment. Moms and dads tend to be working, they're coming back, they're feeling a bit guilty. They're allowing the kids to be entertained because they can keep them quiet, and they're not realizing the effects of just giving a child a device at the age of 2. I think it's educational. Sitting in front of the TV all the time. So that creativity that children are naturally born with has gone. Where a kid says he's bored. Now, if he says he's bored, wow, we never said we were bored in our day because we had to find something to do. Whether we played Cowboys and Crooks, whether we played Gates Open or Leggy, there were all sorts of games that we played as a community. And it was great. And we came home, we either listened to the radio or we did a jigsaw puzzle or something like that, because that's all there was. But it was a different value system where we, the child, had to be creative. Now what has happened is that with all these devices and these sort of sidetrack things where kids are losing their passion, they're developing learning difficulties much more than in the old days. Why is that? Because they don't want to learn. And I've got a little theory at the moment, and I don't think I'm far off the mark. Kids, often they're at home, they're not that well socialized, but they've got to go to school at the age of 5 or 6. A lot of them don't want to go to school, but they don't have to listen because they're told, when you come home, somebody's going to help you. We'll have an au pair or mom will help you. So they're not even concentrating if they're not interested because they come home. Mom's going to help us. Or they go to extra lessons in grade 1. It's ridiculous. Every kid's got the ability to read and to write, but they're sent for extra lessons. They're assessed at the age of 3 and diagnosed with all sorts of things that just create anxiety with a parent. So the parent's caught between, now I know he's got ADHD, so maybe I've just got to allow him now to misbehave because he can't control himself. And we're not actually helping the parents to create boundaries, create values, Restrict the use of all these devices so that kids enjoy actually boundaries, so they can learn how to keep themselves occupied. Another big problem is that we're not allowing kids to, or we're not encouraging or insisting that kids persevere. So they'll start something, get bored. So we give them something else to play with. Well, they're bored. And you've got to understand, games on a computer, for instance, it's not the same as playing a game where you lose and you feel that pain. Yeah, kids lose, they just change the level and they carry on. They're always winning. So they're never experiencing real disappointment. And life is about handling disappointment, not about winning. So we're not allowing them to experiencing that. We're allowing them not to play a rough game in case they get hurt, or not to stay at a party alone in case something happens to them. So they're never experiencing things on their own. Mom tends to be doing everything for them. So the little world they're growing up into is a world that's totally self-centered. They're making demands. They go into extra lessons. Kids actually don't enjoy extra lessons. If you ask them, they don't really enjoy it. But it helps the parents feel while they're doing something for their kid. They're sending the kid for therapy because that's what everybody's doing. But we're not teaching them values properly, not saying please, not saying thank you. Teachers are having a really, really hard time. Classes are getting bigger. And of course, every second kid is on medication today. Well, what are we doing? And I don't have a big problem with medication, except it does nothing for self-esteem. And it is a chemical. And then we're introducing disorders such as depression in 6-year-olds, anxiety, anger management. I mean, what is a 6-year-old angry about? And it gets the parents agitated, but the kid is isolated in all sorts of therapy, and nobody's saying to the parent, listen, you know, if you're going to overprotect your child, if you're going to do everything for your child, he's got to go into a class that's disciplined, that's structured. Is he going to put his hand up? Is he going to ask questions? Is he going to be well behaved? He more than likely won't be. And the next minute he's going for an assessment and he's found to have ADD or some other learning difficulty. And then what do? We send him for more therapy, but nobody's helping those parents set down those structures. Mothers, I just have a look at them. Mothers in their mid-20s, they're looking twice their age, stressed out because the kids are out of control. And they're spending lots and lots of money on this. So the whole thing is shifted now, where the focus is on child's rights. The focus is on that kids are born like they're going to break in half. If they have a disappointment, they be equipped to take on life. Just look at our ancestors, not even ancestors, guys like Branson that really give it a go. Kids have all got that potential to take on life, but we're so scared they'll break in half. So we pussyfoot around them. And then they're moody, and they make life very difficult for parents. And there's lots of screaming and shouting. And when there's screaming and shouting in homes, there's no authority. And adults are the only one that should have the authority, because they're totally dependent on that adult to guide them. The moment the kids are shouting and screaming, that authority breaks down, which is a big problem.
All right, time to take a break. When we come back, we continue with the program. So welcome back. We're talking about the disconnect between adults and youth. And we have in studio Dr. Ken Resnick, and Doc is making his second appearance on this particular program. And I think by now he's a regular face and a regular voice on ITV. This is part 2 of a discussion that actually flows from last week's discussion, where we spoke broadly about understanding youth. And now we're talking more about the disconnect. We spoke quite a bit in the last segment, Doc, about the different aspects of children and their behavior, etc. What about parents? Should parents become more accommodating of teenagers, of youth, those who are not below 10 or below 12, but those who are now in high school, those who are going to university? They tend to have this attitude that, listen, I'm a young adult. I'm not a kid. I'm a young adult. I need some freedom. I need some discretion. I need some space, some leeway, some latitude.
Yeah, look, I think it is very important, because we've got to keep connected to our kids. So, and what we're tending to do is to lecture to them and then talk with a big finger. Now, it takes away choice. So it's not that you've got to let them allow them to have any choice. What we've got to try and do is speak to them differently, number one, and I'll give you a few examples in a minute. And at the end of the day, we've got to try and understand, why are they making the choices they're making? Why is a kid choosing not to learn? Why are they choosing to have a tantrum when they can't get their own way? Why, like it's the end of the world? So that is all part of the parenting. So we've got to teach kids to deal with their lives, and we're not allowing that. And then we're onto them all the time, telling them what to do. Then they're exposed to the bigger world, first in adolescence, and there you've got the peer pressure. And a child that has been not properly socialized is going to be very vulnerable to doing the wrong thing. He's not assertive enough to say no. He's getting acknowledged by certain peers, by strange sort of behavior. And then all of a sudden, because we've not allowed them to make choices, they're not doing that well at school. They don't know what career they want, but they want to go to varsity. Now, that's a whole new world. If they're not disciplined, varsity have a huge amount of dropouts first year. Because, number one, a lot of them don't even know what they want to do. They're doing a BCom or BA because it might sound nice, but they're failing. And then they're expecting the car, they're expecting everything, and then they want a job with their friends. So the self-discipline in actually being able to sit down, study, get their priorities right. They want to be accepted by their friends. Parents don't really know what we're about. And then they're talking badly to parents, which is making it even ridiculous, because you can't tell a kid to stop talking to you like that if you've been allowing it for all those years. If you bring them up right at the beginning to have respect, and you respect them, it's a mutual thing, and to teach them the manners and how to sort of talk to elders, how to cope with difficulties in their life, they grow up equipped. But if you're not going to equip them, they're going to become those little 18-year-olds that think that the world revolves around them. They expect the car. They expect mom to go and buy things for them, run around for them, and then they don't discipline themselves enough to really do well at varsity. And then what are they going to do? There's a growing pool of young adults that are stuck at home. They've dropped out of university, they're there, they've got their girlfriends, they've got a car, they've got what they want, but they've got attitude. And they're not going to leave that home. There's just a growing pool of kids that are staying at home in their 20s, even in their 30s. And now they might even be trying to find a wife, but how are those kids going to establish proper relationships where they can understand or empathize with others, learn how to behave appropriately in a relationship? So they're very, very self-centered. And the problem is nobody's actually helping the parents to understand how to implement those structures, because it's too late when they're a teenager with attitude. You can't make a teenager do anything. They're going to just turn their shoulder on you. They might do it, but begrudgingly, isolate you, and yet you don't know what's going on in their world. And that becomes quite a shock for parents when they really have to find out.
All right, also joining us on the line, we have Dr. Shanti Govender, the Deputy Chief Education Specialist for the GDE. Shanti, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the program. Shanti, can you hear me? Okay, we seem to be having some sort of an issue there, because Shanti Govender, Deputy Chief Education Specialist at the GDE, is with us on the line. Shanti, can you hear me? All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll try and see if we can link up with Shanti Govender. Okay, welcome back. So we're talking about the disconnect between adults and the youth, and we have in studio with us Dr. Ken Resnick. He's an educational psychologist, and joining us now on the line we have Shanti Govender, the Deputy Chief Education Specialist at the GDE. Shanti, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. You're most welcome.
In the educational space, would you say that there is a disconnect between adults and the youth? I suppose adults there would refer to the teachers and to the parents of learners?
Yes, definitely, because parents, in terms of the technological advancement, I think they're finding that space to fit in with their children, and that leaves the gap in terms, and the irony of it in trying to fit in with their children, there's a gap in terms of where teaching and learning is taking place, ensuring their kids are actually acquiring skills and knowledge at school, and being able to apply themselves, because parents are giving in to children in terms of the technological devices and the advancement in which they thrive in.
Now, I was asking our other guest earlier on that very often these days when we talk about the disconnect, when we talk about the challenges when it comes to youth, when it comes to learners, especially in higher school, if I can call it that, reference is always made to technology. But historically, before the smartphones and the Twitters and Facebooks and Instagrams, Was there also a disconnect between adults and youth? Have the reasons changed perhaps over the years?
You're perfectly right. Absolutely. There has always been a disconnect because in terms of teenagehood and everybody wanting to be an individual, as you said in your opening remarks, and it's quite absurd that in wanting their own individuality, every teenager ends up being like everyone else, whether it's hairstyles or fashion gear and the socio-economic pressures of wanting to fit in and have the latest fashion, as well as, the whole being cool and the peer pressure within school. So that does bring in the disjuncture between parenting and children and between teachers and learners themselves.
Recently there was this video clip that did the rounds and it was quite shocking. Many people were appalled. It shows, obviously these video clips don't give you the full context, but in terms of what was there, it showed a learner stand up from behind the desk and take a bunch of papers and actually hit the teacher with the bunch of papers. Are learners in the main very frustrated? Do they have a lot of bent up resentment? Why do we see incidents of this nature? Is there a kind of resentment both ways between adults and youth when it comes to the educational space?
I think it's a lot more than just resentment. It's the whole way that our society has moved. And with the technological advancement, parents have become busier. Even children, when we were kids, we'd say, time is going so slow, or 3-week holidays seemed like forever. But now even little children would say, time is going so fast because everyone is busy. There's pressure on children, there's pressure on teenagers. They need to achieve academically, they need to achieve in sports or ballet, and lots of extracurricular that their parents take them to. But in our other communities where there are more socioeconomic barriers and learners are struggling to get to their schools, there's lots of substance abuse because of drug peddling and dealership in the communities itself. That's a reality even in affluent communities and schools. And we also find in terms of parents moving their kids from the communities where the schools are to schools outside the community. Then, the day starts at 5, ends at 5, 6. So it's added pressure on these learners. And when they cannot cope, I would think that they would go to drugs or succumb to peer pressure and have a leeway in terms of letting out their frustration, but not necessarily resentment.
When we talk about the disconnect between adults and the youth, do you think that the adults need to show more respect towards the youth, and that would go a long way in alleviating the problem? Or is it the case of what many teachers claim, that they need to be empowered with greater tools of discipline? Not maybe to the extent of yesteryear corporal punishment, but many times we hear teachers lamenting that, our hands have been tied, we cannot enforce adequate discipline, and therefore you're seeing the kind of things that we see happening at schools.
I think more in terms of the respect, it should start at home. Parents and the family surroundings, because while teachers are there 6 to 8 hours, in parental locus, and they replace the parents during those hours, but their purpose is clear in terms of teaching, learning, assessment, getting the learner from January to December to achieve in terms of their schooling career. And in terms of respect, teaching respect, gaining respect, giving respect, it stems from very much the home and environment. But lots of the discipline issues are taken into the school and the teachers have to deal with it.
Dr. Ken, if I can bring you here in, what are your thoughts on this argument that, yes, many times we tell the youth, you need to respect adults, you need to show respect. Should we be telling adults all more often about respecting youth?
Well, respect's a mutual thing. You earn respect. And parents, I know my little daughter said to me, how come things were different with us? I said, because we respected you and you respected us. So at the end of the day, they've got to respect authority, your authority, but you've got to be fair. You can't just talk down to kids or start screaming and shouting at them, because that's not showing respect. So you earn their respect, they respect you. But you've got to have boundaries, you've got to have structures, you've got to have certain values, you've got to manage their time. You can't just allow them to go and turn on TVs, play with gadgets without some type of boundary. So the respect is earned by the way if you think of your teachers, think of your good teachers. The ones who respected, there were boundaries, they were fair, they were consistent. And the kids knew exactly how far they could go. That's parents are teachers, they're educators. It has to be a similar sort of thing, where there's got to be a line where they don't get too familiar. They can't just do whatever they like and then earn respect. It's not going to happen, because you must remember, the kids live in their little world and they don't know what respect really means. We've got to show them that, and that's why we've got to have boundaries. We can't just let them say, give me that. Excuse me, may I have that, please? So we've got to teach kids manners. We've got to teach them how to handle disappointments, how to persevere at a task. Those and then respect comes automatically, because kids then grow up wanting to learn, wanting to do things for themselves, and they respect the parent because the parent has set down the boundaries, is calm, is in control, and they're respecting that authority.
Shanti, coming back to you, would you say that it's accurate when people say that today teachers are more under pressure with the youth that they are teaching than ever before?
I totally agree, because we go to our schools and we see what educators are faced with. I mean, you have a parent with 3 children, 1 child, 5, and they have children with problems. And teachers have to deal with 30, 40, 50 learners in their class, or an entire school of learners. And they have a good few learners in terms of substance abuse, attitude, behavior problems. And in lots of instances, the parents are shocked because they don't see this kind of behavior at home or with family members.
Do you think it's time now that every school has to have an expert psychologist or educational psychologist, not only for the sake of the learners, but for the teachers themselves, so they can get counseling, they can get assistance, they can get some guidance?
Yes, and the department does have an educator employee wellness program in place for all department personnel.
So are we moving towards every school having a full-time educational psychologist on site?
At this point in time, it's not on site, but we have psychologists at the district that are allocated schools, and they are there to help learners and teachers in the circumstances and have the proper psychometric assessments done as well, and alternate assessments for behavior challenges, learning barriers, etc.
Dr. Ken, your thoughts on that? Should we have one per school now at least?
We've got to have parenting programs, because remember, children are totally dependent on an adult to guide them. That is teachers and parents. Now, the teachers have only limited authority. It has to start at home, but we've got to know what to tell parents, and we don't. We just call them and tell them your kid's a problem, and then go and have them assessed, without helping them understand that what they're doing, as I said, by overprotecting, by overindulging, by all of these things, how that's impacting on the child and the problems they pick up at school. Because teachers have limited authority, and if the parent then has a go at the teacher, you can give that teacher as many courses as you like. The parents have to be brought into that, and programs have to be disseminated into the broader community so parents can take the responsibility, because it starts there. And the schools unfortunately have to deal with it, but they can only manage it to a certain degree. If they don't have the parents on board, pulling the other way, we're sitting with a big problem.
Shanti, before I let you go, would you like to just inform our viewers with regard to some of the other programs that the GDE is implementing in this regard?
Well, in terms of learners that need support academically, and I've explained that we do have psychologists that assess learners that are not achieving academically, so that they can be placed at schools of specialized learning if they need to. But other programs, support programs in place, working with teachers in terms of helping the learners at risk, remedial work, extra lessons to get them on par academically.
All right, Shanti Govender, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Sure, you are welcome. Thank you very much.
And Dr. Ken Resnick, thank you for your time as well. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, viewers, we take a break. When we come back, we continue.
الناس حبك كن جميل المساعي وامنح الناس الناس حبك.
Right, so before the break, we had Dr. Ken Resnick in studio. We also had Shanti Govender on the line, and we had the expert perspective when it comes to the disconnect between adults and teenagers, especially in the educational environment, in the educational space. And in last week's program, we spoke to Moulana Muhammad Venka, who gave us the Islamic perspective when it came to youth, and we also spoke to Shakil Gardam, who told us from the perspective of the youth where they feel the disconnect is. Now, as we wrap up this two-part series on understanding youth, we're going to be playing out a clip for you, inshallah, just to give you the different dimensions and to put things back into perspective and to leave you with some food for thought. Watch this clip.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
These are true men. This ayah, the second ayah, it said it was revealed in Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu. Revealed because of Mus'ab and his like. Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu is a perfect example. If I go around and ask the Ummah of Muhammad, the 1.7 billion Muslims in our time, go and ask them, make some statistics. Who was Mus'ab ibn Umair radiyallahu anhu? A lot of people have never even heard that name before in their life. And some people, they know the name. Oh, I heard about him, but I can't really remember, like, who is he, what did he do? Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu. Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu was a young man. Like many of the brothers you see here in front of us, mashallah. Young man. In his teens. He met Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet of Allah gave him da'wah, he accepted Islam. And he was a filthy, rich young man in Mecca. His mother was filthy rich. And she used to dallilu, she used to, look after him big time. أعطر فتى في مكة. If he walked in the street, you can tell, after a long period after he has passed, you can tell from the fragrance he has left behind that Mus'ab has passed by this street. Mus'ab has passed through this road. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Luxury, na'im, best clothes, best perfume, filthy rich, looked after well. And then Iman entered his heart. Deen entered his heart. Love of Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Akhirah and hereafter entered his heart. So Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu sacrificed all these worldly things and followed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. His mother threatened him. You follow this man, I will cut you off. No money, no luxury, nothing. Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu stays steadfast on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sacrificed. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu, when he got boycotted by his mother, in some narrations, he started wearing sheepskin. Imagine in the heat of Mecca. Those of you who know, I'm sure you live here also, it's very, very hot. Imagine in peak summer, and all you have to wear is sheepskin. So Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu will be wearing such rough clothes. No more the beautiful fragrance, from a long time, a long period on the road. Nothing like that. Prophet of Allah, he once saw him entering, he was sitting with his companions. He said, look at this young man. Look at the words of Rasulullah. Look at this young man. Look what the love of Allah and His Prophet did to him. By Allah, I used to see Mus'ab, the most they had the best fragrance, the best smell in all of Mecca. Such luxury. Look what the love of Allah and His Prophet did to this young man. So Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu accepted Islam. And the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he sent him to Medina. In year 12 Hijri, 1 year before Hijrah, year 12 after prophethood, he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, some Ansar, some people of Deen accepted Islam. So he sent with them Mus'ab radiyallahu anhu. He sent him, he was the first ambassador of Islam. The Prophet of Allah sent him to call to Allah in Medina. All Medina is in his pocket. All Medina is in his rewards, in his books, radiyallahu ta'ala. Young man, But he went to Medina and he started working in da'wah. Within the span of 1 year, this is a hero for you. Within the span of 1 year, there was not a house in Medina, a family in Medina that did not have a convert in it. Not a house, some whole families into Islam. All Banu Abdul Ashhal, you know, the tribe of Sa'd bin Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, all of them accepted Islam because of Mus'ab radiallahu anhu. Tribes, whole tribes, we will come on Judgment Day behind him, tribes of the Ansar, the highest levels of Iman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And come see our youth now, they can't read Fatiha properly. Mus'ab radiallahu anhu traveled to Medina, worked in da'wah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted his work, and thousands of people, mashallah, are in his records. And then soon after Hijrah, after migration, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he gives him the flag, he gives him the liwa of the army in the Battle of Uhud. So Mus'ab radiallahu anhu carries the flag and he fights, and we all know the story. You know, when the Muslims started, you know, fleeing and running away in Kashaf al-Jaysh, Mus'ab radiallahu anhu was attacked and martyred in this battle. What state did he die in radiallahu anhu? Once Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, which is one of the Ashra Mubashareen. Do you know Abdurrahman ibn Auf? Soon, inshallah, hopefully we know. At least the 10, the highest ranking companions. Go and test people around you. Go to your wife, to your mother, to your father, to your friends. List a paper. List 20 of your mates and go and give them this test. Who are the 10 highest ranking companions of our deen in the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and see the success rate. I don't embarrass anyone, but see the success rate. You realize who you really love, my brothers and sisters. We realize who you really love, you will know then. So, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, one of the greatest companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was once fasting. Authentic hadith, he was fasting. So they brought for him food. When they put food in front of him, and he's fasting, it's not like he's indulging in luxury and eating like we eat. Something very, very, very simple. He was fasting and food came. When he saw the food, he started crying, radiallahu anhu. Please, my brothers, when we read these ahadith, when you hear these stories, try to live the moment. Don't be superficial. Try to understand how these Sahaba radiallahu anhu, how they felt in their hearts. This man is fasting. And he's not eating with israf, he's not eating his, his belly full like we do. Very, very, very simple. Gets brought in front of him, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He sees the food, and then he starts crying, radiallahu anhu. Khair, why are you crying, Abdurrahman? You are the Prophet of Allah himself. He said you're going to Jannah. What more do you want? What more do you want? The Prophet of Allah said you're going to Jannah, guaranteed. Abdurrahman radiallahu anhu starts crying. He's crying and crying and crying. What's wrong, Abdurrahman? Please eat. Then he says, radiallahu anhu, قتل مصعب بن عمير. Mus'ab radiallahu anhu was martyred in the Battle of Uhud. وكان خيرا مني. He was better than me. Look at how humble the Sahaba radiallahu anhu are. He is one of the 10, and Mus'ab isn't. But he says what? Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu was martyred in the Battle of Uhud. وكان خيرا مني. When he was martyred radiallahu anhu, we did not find anything, a cloth to shroud him with. We couldn't find a shroud for this man in dunya. After Battle of Uhud, 70 companions were martyred. 70 of the companions. All true men radiallahu anhum ajma'een. We didn't find anything to shroud him with, except a little sheet. When we cover his head, his feet appear. We cover his feet, his head appears. So we went to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and we asked him, what do we do, Ya Rasulullah? So the Prophet of Allah said, cover his head and put on his feet some plants, some greenery. ضعوا على قدميه شيئا من الإذخر. And then Abdul Rahman radiallahu anhu said an amazing statement. قال أخشى أن تكون طيباتنا قد عجلت لنا في الدنيا. I'm concerned that the reward of our a'mal, the reward of our sacrifices is being given to us in this world, and we will get nothing there. This is Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu talking about one of the greatest men, Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu. When he died, there was no shroud to cover him. But in the sight of Allah, where is Mus'ab radiallahu anhu now? A true hero, a true man, my brothers. In him and his like, this ayah was revealed. مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ. True men. Are we true men? Do we have these qualities? Do we know about these people? No. Shaitan has fooled us. Shaitan has tricked us by the oldest trick in the book. We are being fooled by the oldest trick in the book. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ. Oh human beings, oh people, the promise of Allah is the truth. فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. Don't allow this world to fool you. وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورِ. Don't allow shaitan to fool you. We are being fooled by the trick, the oldest trick in the book. What is it? Shaitan comes to me and you and everyone, all the youngsters, all the youth, and says to them what? Don't worry about deen now. He never says to you, don't pray at all, die without deen, die without Quran, die without salah. He never says that. Die doing sin, never says that. He says to you, not now. He talks to you like your religious advisor. He speaks to you like he's your best Islamic friend, and says to you, Habibi, now, school. Inshallah, I promise you, look. If you go harsh on yourself now, you'll break. Take it easy. Slowly. Now, school. You have to understand the circumstances. Inshallah, when you finish school, inshallah, I will take you to the mosque myself. What will happen? Go to anyone in school. I'm talking about high school. Go to brother, come to the mosque. Sister, let's start learning deen. Let's start practicing deen. Oh, Shaykh, wallah, I love deen. I love Islam. I love Allah. But Allah, now it's a rough patch in my life. It's a very, 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 serious stage in my life. Inshallah, once I finish high school, Allahu Akbar, where am I going to go? I finish high school, I'll be with you in the masjid. I will work in da'wah. I will memorize the Quran. I will do and I will do. So he finishes high school and he goes to uni. Come to him in uni, say, brother, remember in high school you said deen now? Oh, Shaykh, people in high school, people in uni, what do they say? Oh, we miss school days. Where are school days? SubhanAllah. Now we are stuck. Now we are in trouble. Now the assignments are much more serious. And I'm paying money before school was, and I'm doing this and please, Shaykh, Allah. Inshallah, after I finish high school, Allahu Akbar, what am I going to do? I'm with you in the masjid. Khalas now, I'm free. I can do what I'll have deen in my life. All right, leave him until he finishes university. He finishes university, you go to him after university. Say, brother, now deen, now da'wah, now Islam. Oh, now we're in time of fitna. I need to get married, I need to get married. MashaAllah, sah ma'ak haq, get married, inshallah. Marriage, and after marriage, kids. Those who are not married, what do they say? Say, Shaykh, wallah, my biggest problem is marriage. Wallahi, if I get married, everything in my life will fall in place. And those who are married are saying what? Oh, I miss my single days. Where are the single days? Ask any married couple, where are the free days when I was doing what I want and I had time on me? Imam Shafi'i, rahmatullah alayhi, says what? Something very beautiful. He says, Man tazawwaja faqad rakib al-bahr. In the old days, going on a ship in the sea was equivalent to committing suicide. They were very, very scared of the ocean. So they used to think of traveling the air. And in Egyptian we say, ركب البحر, يعني إذا خلاص he's gone, يا حرام. He might come back, he might not come back. Imam Shafi'i says, من تزوج فقد ركب البحر. He who got married, then verily he has jumped in the ocean. فإن أنجب له كسر به. If he has kids, the ship sinks. Last, when you are married with kids, very, very little time, too much responsibility. I have to pay this and the bills and that and my children and I have to keep up with the responsibilities and I have no time for this and I have no time for this. La ilaha illallah. When you're a kid, you say, wait until I grow up. When you grow up, say, I wish I was a kid. When is deen going to come, my brothers? When is da'wah going to come? When are the youth of our ummah, when will they realize that they have a massive load on the shoulders?
Well, that brings us to the end of this program. I hope you enjoyed the clip. I hope you enjoyed both the guests that we had this evening. And I hope you enjoyed this two-part series on understanding youth. Until next week, inshallah, fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
كن سامحا لخصمك حبك بيض الله قلبك بيض الله